Okay, I'm Rasheed, Ogunlaru, coach, speaker and author, and I'm recording this at the moment at the end of, or toward the end of the year. You may well be watching it now toward the end of the year, and I'm inviting you to review your year. But it might well be that you're watching this at some other time in the year and you're reviewing it from mid-year to mid-year or what have you. But you know, often we, particularly when it comes toward the end of the year, we rush toward the end of the year. We're tying things up toward the end of the year for the holiday season and so on, and maybe celebrating personally and so on. But I often feel as though we don't often stop to take the real richness and the fullness of that year before we are focusing ahead, or the time that we're caught up in the end of the year festivities, which is good and important, but we often forget to really take stock. So I want to invite you to stop and to think for a moment about what's really gone well this year. What have been the highlights of your year? You know, you might even want to just pause this and grab a bit of paper and to write that down. You know, personally, what have been the highlights? And professionally, what have been the highlights of your year? And what have been the challenges this year? There have been all sorts of challenges. Personally, again, write that down. Let it come to mind. At home, in relationships, with your friendships, locally to you, with your health and your own well-being. What have been the challenges for you also professionally? Maybe in work or in business, or finding work or finding business. Maybe in terms of your growth, maybe there have been all sorts of challenges with others, or with situations, or with the climate that you may well be faced with. What's it that you've learned from all of that? What's all the learning been? Slightly to be enriched with learning. From the things that have gone well, perhaps, but also more so from the things that haven't gone so well. And often we tend to put these things in a drawer, but it might well be that there's all sorts of stuff that haven't gone well. I was sat with two wonderful contacts and colleagues of mine. We were having a catch-up, end of year, Christmas, festive, you know, end of the year kind of catch-up. And they were both sat there saying, oh my God, it's been a really challenging year. Although they've both done wonderful things this year. But I was also just pointing out, we were talking about all the learning from those things. So what has been the learning? There might be all sorts of learning from things that you would never do again or what have you, but that's great. That's what makes somebody a great athlete over time. So what's the learning been? And what are the priorities for you right now? What are the things that come to mind that are most important to you? It might just be one or two things that are really important for you, perhaps in terms of taking care of your health or your well-being, or there might be some people around you, or it might be just a couple of things relating to your career, your business. What are the things that are really priorities? Just be mindful of that. It's quite good to just be really mindful of the handful of things, the two or three things that are really important as you let's step to next year, literally calendar year or segment of the year. I invite you now to give yourself credit for being here, and for all that you've achieved, and all that you've seen, and all that you've the challenges that you've faced and that you've met. Really do take that time to celebrate and to be grateful. I also want to invite you to think about when is the time for you. I think it's really important, even if it's just 3 minutes. I was working with someone earlier on today, and we just needed to find 3 minutes for her in terms of her day. Just for her to be grateful, for her to connect to herself with this energy, and for the learning and the wisdom of her whole life, actually, in her case, to kind of come through. Okay. Just invite you to sit with all of that. Wow, what a year. Finally, I just want you to just gently begin to think about what are the 2 or 3 things that are most important to you time as key personally for next year, for the new year, or the new academic or calendar year or fiscal year, whatever year it is that you're looking at it through the lens of. And again, what are the 2 or 3 things that are really important for you for the next year professionally? The mind might quite like you to be quite specific about that. It kind of helps it to plan and prepare and help organise you. But there we are, your review of the year. Write down, perhaps reflect on it, keep that notice. You know, what we're doing really here is just taking the juice out of the year, re-nourishing ourselves with that, with all that learning, with all that insight. Take the time to relax, recharge, regroup, reconnect. And I'm wishing you every success and happiness for the year ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.